I guess my first impression of campus was really when I started going through the BOCES program back in high school to Casper College. And I think my first impressions of campus are it's incredibly nice. It's very clean. It's a great campus, honestly. Lots of cozy places to study and just different nooks and crannies where you'll find pods of people kind of hanging out and doing their thing. And it makes you want to be a part of it, I think. I was already attending Casper College, and it just made it a very natural transition because I had kind of met some of the teachers already. The departments are pretty small, and I knew the vibe of the classroom with smaller classes, and it was just comfortable on campus. Like some of my classmates who went to other four-year universities, they would talk about how they were just a number in the class and that they weren't even sure their teacher read their papers or knew their name because there was like 100+ people in their class, and so they had met some of the student teachers or the tutors, but they didn't really know their teachers. And so I was happy to be here where we built relationships, I felt like. I do know they knew each other, but I don't know how much they worked together. But there was definitely like shared lore amongst classes for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I majored in communications. I think what drew me to communications was just that I knew that I wanted to write and I knew I wanted to travel, and there seemed to be a lot of jobs related to the communications field where I could potentially get those things. So I was kind of just trying to get done as quickly as possible and get out in the workforce, and I didn't really want any debt associated with it either. So I took classes pretty much around the clock and did some online, some in person. It just depended on the class, really. Yeah, some of them, and I'm not really sure how it was determined which ones would be online or which ones would be in person, but whatever I was required to take as far as credits went, I just took it. I would definitely say that Dr. Lee stands out. It was a very small teaching staff at the time, so I got most of my classes with Dr. Lee actually, and she was just phenomenal. So I think that the way she structured the classes and the discussion was very beneficial. Yeah, I was a full-time employee at the time I was doing school too. I lived on caffeine to the point that I gave myself adrenal fatigue actually and couldn't drink coffee for a year getting out of college because I had just consumed too much caffeine. It was not the healthiest way to do it, I suppose, but definitely taught me time management, and I don't know if it taught me necessarily how to manage stress, but I got through it. So, and it was worth it. I mean, I graduated debt-free, so being able to have that opportunity here is pretty unique. I've always been a night owl, and when you're doing classes most of the day and then working till you're probably working a closing shift, so 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and then you go home and you decompress a little bit, so then you're not going to bed until midnight or 1 a.m. and then you've got homework somewhere in there. You just don't sleep a whole lot. But I mean, the flexible scheduling of most of the classes too, and that played into the online and in-person classes. The flexible scheduling really helped with that because I could maintain full-time and do school. I guess I keep going back to we have very small cohorts, so there's people that I still every once in a while check in with today and see what they're doing. A couple of them just still live around here. It's fun watching where they've come to since then, and there are some surprises in there. That's a lot of fun. So it's great. I think that I wouldn't have had the same experience or have built the same relationships with people if it had been a larger cohort, because I think then you just select your pot of friends and you hang out with them, and they may or may not be in the same degree program as you. It just depends. So yeah, I think all the ones that I went to school with, they've been successful in their own way. I guess it was kind of a chaotic journey. I mean, I went basically from my internship into a full-time position at the same place I was getting my internship. So I did my social media marketing internship at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody, and was doing pretty well there at the time. And so they kept me on. I was only supposed to be there, I think, for the internship for 9 weeks, to get the credits for college. And they kept me for a year. And then the grant that was funding my position ran out. But I was ready to be done there anyways at that point, because I was getting to the end of school and I was ready for a break. So I went up and I worked for my grandparents in Montana. They have an outfitting business. And I'd been doing that off and on since I was a little kid anyways. So it was a nice break, and I thought that I wanted to do the military. So I had applied for officer candidate school with the Navy, and I was going to try to do marketing for then. So staying on the communication side of things. That didn't really pan out and that's okay. It's not for everybody. But I met a lot of really, really amazing people and learned some pretty incredible lessons through that experience. But I got home in February of 2020, 2 weeks before everything shut down for COVID. So it was an incredibly stressful time. I ended up out of work for 6 months, just living off of my savings account. And then as that started to dwindle away, I was like, I was wanting to save this for a house down payment and watching it just disappear. So went and got the first job I could. That was hostessing at a restaurant, which it worked. Moved up into serving. I worked there probably 6 months, did a 1 month marketing thing with a realtor in town. Found out I will never do realty in any form ever again. But thankfully, at that point, another person had found me on LinkedIn and offered me a job. With a startup that she was putting together. So I ended up working with her for 3-ish years and learned a lot, did a lot. But I was a team of 1, and that got old. And about that time, I saw that the director of marketing position had come open at Casper. So I applied for that, knowing I wasn't entirely quite qualified for it, but that I could definitely grow into it and it would be fine because I've been a team of 1 for 3 years, basically. Exactly. So I got the call back that I hadn't got the job. And I cried. I was very upset. I really wanted to work with Visit Casper. I had followed their accounts for years and really loved the work that they did. And a week later, the CEO at the time called me back and he said, so I know that we didn't give you the director of marketing job, but our social media job is actually open right now too. Do you want that one? I was like, yep, I'll take it. Okay. So that's how I ended up with them. And I've been doing that for the last 2.5 years. At the beginning of the year, we got a new CEO, and I was already getting to a point again where I was like, I have outgrown what I'm doing right now. So my new CEO, she sat down with me and she's like, okay, what do you want to do for the future? And we transitioned my role into the community engagement manager. So I'm no longer dealing with any of our social media, which I'm very excited about. But I am leaning even more into the things that I learned in my communications degree, where I'm building relationships with different partners in our community and seeing how we can work better together to both serve our locals and our visitors coming in. I'm heading up all of our public education programs, a lot of public speaking in there, which can be fun or intimidating depending on the day, I suppose. And I'm going back to school right now to get my English master's, and I'm doing that at the University of Wyoming too. I would say the communication theory class is also one of those things because I just think about the way that people behave and why they behave that way all the time. And it gives you that framework We love to talk about how everybody, no matter what degree they were in, should probably take a couple of communications courses because it would help them so much to make everyone's lives easier, including their own. And I would stand by that to this day. I think sometimes I think I might have missed some of the community aspect of it, of like taking the path of staying in a dormitory or being a little more involved on campus with clubs or programs. But I don't necessarily regret the choice now, just because not every path is for everybody, and I'm happy with where I ended up. And so I think the outcome can speak for itself. But you know, I think that if you're more of a social person and you don't think that it's going to be too much of a burden to take on a little bit of debt to have those experiences, that it might be worth it to you. Timeline doesn't have to be everybody else's timeline. And you'll see a very broad range of students, from people coming back after 30 years to continue their education to people right off of their associate's degree. There's such a range of people that you find out that the timelines don't really matter at all. You don't have to measure yourself against anyone else. It's about what your goals are and where you want to be. And if you need support, the support is here. The professors are great and wonderful to reach out to. If you need anything, if you're struggling, they're there for sure, in a way that maybe other professors wouldn't be able to because of class size or scheduling or whatever. So it's very, very helpful in that way, I think. And I think just don't be afraid to reach out for help. Even if it's not a school thing and you're struggling, adjusting to just being an adult, being an adult can be a lot. And it is okay to need some help. The college also provided free counseling for students. And so I actually went in and saw a counselor a few times just to vent more than anything, and get it all out. And she was very, very kind and very helpful. And I think that definitely helped get me the last little bit of the way there that I needed to get my bachelor's. Yeah, because a lot of the amenities that were available to you as a Casper college student, they're still available to you when you're a UW Casper student. And then I also took advantage of our writing center here again to be like, hey, I haven't done this in 6 years, so I actually don't know if I know what I'm doing anymore, because I've been writing captions for social media for 6 years, and that's very different from writing a paper for a graduate program. And they were incredibly helpful still. So that's another great thing, is that the community here in Casper can have access to the resources and the great teachers and everything up here if they choose to reach out. And those people can become a resource to you too, because they're working regular jobs that might lead to opportunities for you. And that networking is really probably one of the most valuable things you can do. When you're coming from a background where you know that your parents can't help you with college, and that they also believe that when you have to work for something yourself and earn it yourself, that you appreciate it more. And I definitely agree with that sentiment now, for sure. There is a pressure of, if I don't get through this now, it's going to be a very costly mistake to try and come back, because my halfway will get canceled, or this and this and this will happen. And I think that's one of the maybe unintended skills that you learn in college, is what you need to prioritize. And sometimes it's not the healthiest on the outside, or maybe for a prolonged term, but college is temporary. Anybody can do anything for a couple of years, and you can get through it. But also, if you find out that the path that you're on is not the priority, and that you don't like where you're going and you don't like the outcomes that you see, it's okay to take a pause and step back and do something else. It is okay. I was done with school. I was so done with school at the end of my bachelor's. I was burned out and over it. But that's part of the strategy that I took to get there, is I was working full time and doing school full time, and I was crazy. So I got to the end of that and I didn't want to do that anymore. I'd say be brave enough to go out into the real world and find out those things about yourself. And if it leads you back to school, that's great. You make it work.
You do.
You make it work. That's how anybody does anything. When I think about my parents, they ended up with 3 kids when they were under the age of 25. And even though the economy was a little bit different back then, it wasn't that different. That's still a lot. And my mom was doing school online and working at the same time to help with bills and all of the things. She's a superhero in my mind. Like, I did a lot of what she did, but she did it with kids, which is crazy. And when I talked to her about it, she's like, I don't know, you just figure it out. That is the situation that you're in, and it needs to get done, so you make it work. Not really a specific memory, but it's just being in an academic setting where people are thinking about things that they wouldn't normally think about and talking through what they think about those things and why they think about those things that way. I think that's really valuable to your development as a person, and I just really enjoy that setting, which, I mean, I'm an English major now, so that shouldn't be shocking to anyone. It's just a bunch of teachers and students sitting around in a classroom having conversations. But you know, that could be the conversation that sparks someone's idea that invents a really incredible solution that changes a lot of people's lives. I would say maybe not by our relationship during college, but one of the people that I've kind of kept track of over the years, his name is Dylan. He kind of works still in the Casper area, and he is currently very publicly on his sobriety journey. And I think back to who he was and what he was during college and where he is now, and it's inspiring. I think the changes that he's made in his life and the way that he isn't keeping that to himself. He is working to reach out to other people to lift them up too and say, you don't have to live that way. And I think that's really cool. That was one of the reasons I even stayed in Casper to do all of my college studies, is because my family was here and my church was here, my friends were here. Some of them moved away to do other things, which is fine, but I still had a pretty solid network here behind me. And having work already and continuing that was a huge support. And the fact that they were fine with being flexible with classes and the whole thing, it's very nice. I think that's unusual for a lot of people. I was an expo, and so an expo is just the bossy person in the kitchen. You help keep the servers organized and the kitchen organized so that everybody's talking to each other. The servers aren't supposed to talk to the kitchen. They're supposed to talk to you so that you can relay to the kitchen what's going on, because otherwise you've got 20 people yelling at the kitchen. They can't tell what's going on. So you become the relay, basically.
You realize communication.
Oh, you're communicating always. Communication is everything. Even when you're not speaking, you are communicating. And even people who aren't in communications can recognize those things instinctually. All that taking communications courses do is it gives you tools to address people that you wouldn't normally address because they communicate in a different style than you do. Okay. It gives you the framework for understanding different forms of communication. You asked earlier about maybe surprising applications, and I would say discernment in commercials. All that commercials are and marketing is a form of communication that is there to convince you to do something. And so if you're watching those things and you're hearing the buzzwords, you're hearing the call to action, and you can identify those things for what they are, you don't necessarily have to be persuaded. I mean, pick your electives wisely, I think. I mean, you aren't required to take just communications classes. You can become a well-rounded human being. I took some literature courses. I took some psychology courses. It is okay to explore things that interest you. You don't have to do all one thing and specialize at the undergrad level. You don't. So I would take advantage of that and be curious and learn all of the things that you want to learn, because this is the time to do it, really.